series on identifying opportunities in restoration-linked value chains. We're again very grateful to Dr. Amrita for coming in and taking out the time to do these sessions, which we feel are quite foundational and an anchor point to the core capacity building stage. Starting right from the basics of positioning ourselves in the restoration ecosystem, and then looking at how each startup in this cohort can move towards becoming a high value node there. So again, thank you, Dr. Amrita, for coming in for this second session, which will, of course, consolidate, build some of the learnings and reflections from the past session. Just a few quick points. We'd request wherever you can to please leave your videos on. Also, this is designed to be a lot more interactive, this session especially. So we would really urge everyone else who was not able to participate much last time around to share your thoughts, your questions, any kinds of points you would want to share. We'll be keeping an eye on the chat box and also looking at people who've raised hands. And also, everyone, if you could just stay for a few minutes after Dr. Amrita's session is over, that would be great. The WRI and Wilgrow teams just wanted to share a few housekeeping details. Before I pass it on to Dr. Amrita, just want to pause here in case any of my colleagues from the WRI team would want to come in. If not, we can get started. Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay, sure. So Dr. Amrita, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining. This session is, like Ananya said, going to build on the last session. So the last session, we did a lot of how you find your position in a larger restoration ecosystem or a larger restoration systems setup. This one, we're going to try and delve more into how do you strengthen that position now that you've identified it. I'm going to share screen. Like I said, I'm a little technologically challenged with Teams specifically, so give me a minute while we get that going. And let me know what you're seeing on the screen. Yeah, we're good?
Yeah, looks good. We can start.
Okay. I'm just going to try and minimize this, but if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to keep it here on the side, and hopefully that'll work. Does that seem fine for everybody?
Yeah, looks good.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's get started. I hope you all have your worksheets for this session. And I wanted to thank everyone who filled in the worksheets last time. They're really useful because I get a sense of how much was actually translated, how much you're actually being able to take in. Like the last session, please use the chat box. Please, raise your hands and someone will get to you and we can pause in the middle of something if something's not clear. Saying that, let's see how we go with this. So this session's objectives are to build on the session one reflections, refine everyone's positioning within the value chain. That is to think about that larger positioning exercise that we did and where you are situated. Remember, we did enablers, direct restorers, adjacency, those kind of things. We're going to strengthen the articulation of what value there is across stakeholders as your business wants to undertake. And then we're going to improve readiness for pitching and engagement. Now, this is an ongoing process, right? This is just going to be the beginning of that. But I hope what these two sessions do is useful as you go ahead and pitch and engage with the wider markets, with wider stakeholders. The short feedback poll will happen, but I think WRI and Wilgrow will see to that after the session as well. So just quick recap. We talked about framing this shift, about how restoration has become very enterprise-led, and rightly so, because enterprises have a lot of things that can feed restoration that other actors may not be able to do. But what this also means, and this is a point that all of you seem to have gotten the last time we were talking about it, perhaps you already knew before, is that the reality of restoration looks very different depending on who you are as an actor. And you are entering existing systems. Whether they are government run, whether they are community run, whether they are NGO run, these systems already exist and for very different goals. So some restoration does actually happen for wildlife habitats and for wildlife to get from one protected area to another. Otherwise, restorations could be a very sort of spatial exercise of where can you restore what kind of restoration. So that's also research, right? And we sort of went over this last time about how wide and diverse the restoration setup is. There are system layers that you are now entering. There's the landscape, of course, what you're actually basing all of this on, the community's livelihoods, institutions, and markets. So here's a prompt for everyone. What is the one dependency that you identified last time? And if anyone still wants to talk about that, we can. Just spend a couple of minutes to think about once again what you want to do and where in the system you find yourself, especially given all of these layers. And Ananya, I'm trying to minimize this on the side, but it's not happening.
No worries. I'll keep an eye on if any hands are up. So I'll
Okay.
pass those on. Yeah.
Okay. And a dependency can be simply like, if you rely on farmers and their produce, let's say they have a very bad rainy season. So what happens to your production sourcing? Something like that could be a really simple dependency that is actually a very big risk. Does everyone remember that we did a bit of risk identifying last time? I see Namrata's hand up, I think.
Yes. Yeah, for my organization, the one dependency is that we purchase vermicompost from vermicompost entrepreneurs. And right now we have quite a few entrepreneurs from like we have three or four from whom we are buying, but and we've done some quality testing, but they are also free to sell it elsewhere also. So in that way, we are dependent.
Yeah.
And if one of them withdraws, does not supply to us during the crucial agricultural season, it can be a challenge for us. So we do provide training on vermicomposting to people who are interested in exploring it as a business. That's all we are doing in order to increase our pool of vermicompost entrepreneurs. But I'm not sure if that is enough
Yeah.
in the long
And
run.
and I think one of the things that I repeated often in the last session is I'm not going to have all the answers, and perhaps even as founders, you're not going to have all the answers. But these exercises really allow clarity, right? They allow for clarity of where the risk is, what the risk is, what's the quantum of risk you're holding. So that's the kind of
Yes.
thing we're going towards. Thanks, Namrata, for jumping in here.
We also have a comment from Nagasai from Krishi Carbon. He said that community and market are two areas where there are key dependencies.
Yeah, great. We're going to dive into more of that as we go in now. Anyone else who wanted to speak up now, or shall we move on? Okay. So now we're just going to build on that session one that we did. Okay, so a couple of things we're going to do is we're going to first reflect. If you don't have your worksheets, you should get them, open them, have them handy. And now we're going to go. So what has changed since that last session? Did anything from the last session shift in you? Did you think of anything in a new way? Um, if anything felt uncomfortable, just name it, like drop it in the chat, write it on your worksheet, however you feel like, because the point of doing this together is to learn together. The more we tell each other what we felt, what we thought was clear, the more we'll actually think about it in our own examples. So anything there, and right now we're going to go straight into it. So open your worksheets, and section 1 and section 2 are both there, but section 1 is essentially a reflection. So if you could fill that in, that would be great. I'm just going to pause here, and then if a few people have already written, we'll give people a couple of minutes. But if they've already written their first reflection, or if something really big changed, or really think something was really uncomfortable from last time, we can chat about that too. Remember, we did one where everyone's hands were up for whether you were a direct restorer or an enabler or you were adjacent to the system. How did that feel for everyone in the room?
So yeah, Amrita, I can go.
Yeah.
So in the last session when we discussed, so the thing came like what is the biggest limitation? What is the thing which will limit you in the future, in the scale also? So we realized like we completely depend on the millets. And this year, what happened? There's a commodity called little millet. So suddenly the production dropped at a farmer end,
Right.
and MP government started buying the material.
Yes, they
So
have.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there was a scarcity in the market. So the price,
Right.
the millet which were earlier 35 rupees per kg, right now the raw material price went up to 56 rupees.
Yes,
So
I know
almost like
this.
50, 60% like price increase.
Right.
So we were thinking, okay, we are completely depending on this three, four kind of millet grains. So should we explore other value chain or should we
Mhm.
complement with some other value chain? So that one perspective came to us. Okay, we
Yeah.
should explore other opportunity as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you position yourself as another minimum, price provider? Like the government is one, but if
Hmm.
you have a connection and embeddedness with your partners who
Hmm.
were your producers, can you say,
Correct.
okay, even if the government changes its mind, we will be your MSP people? So
Correct.
that's a relationship to think about. But yes, diversification is never wrong. One thing I would strongly suggest is diversification because of one dependency is something to think about, but to
Hmm.
action it, actually spend some more time in thinking what it that might look like. Maybe there are ways within the one grain that you can one kind of grain that you can still work through. But thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? What did they think of that particular dependency? Do you have a dependency like that of your own or a risk?
You can raise your hands or just jump in here if anyone would like to come in.
Yeah, in our case, uh, I from Oslo.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our case, we are dependency basically from the technological point of view based on manufacturing and scale. So dependency on Chinese magnets to produce the
Mhm.
motors that become in a completely halt, not only a small like as a startup, but big as a Chetak company or Bajaj company as well. So
Right.
dependency is quite high in terms of electrically powered machineries. And in terms of scaling to the other newer geography, dealer dependency.
Hmm.
So we are facing like how we can expand last mile
Mm-hmm.
expansion there through
Yeah.
local dealers. Through that become a difficulty, and the local languages become very prominent in this case.
Mhm.
That we are also dependency how we are communicating in other languages. So
Sure.
English and Hindi become very limited in terms of it.
Right.
So the
Right. If you go
levels of a
south
dependence.
suddenly, if you go
Yeah.
south or if you go east, suddenly it changes.
Kerala, they don't respect any other language.
Yeah.
Tamil also they don't
Yeah.
respect. So
Yeah.
it's
That's
kind
true.
difficult to do the sales. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But was this something that came up in the last session, or was it something you were already thinking about?
like value and dependency when I was writing these thoughts came.
Okay, great.
Right.
Well, I'm glad that was useful. I'm glad that brought up some of these things for you. And thank you for sharing that. Did other people also have these things they were thinking about after the last session? In terms of geography or the China thing, actually, is it really that bad a dependency? I mean, China's not going to stop manufacturing anytime soon.
Yeah, it's quite bad.
Really?
Everything, yeah. So most of the components are like there is a no manufacturer in India who takes a challenge to develop. The few companies
Mhm.
are doing it, but there are not a small like 500-watt motors. They are not doing it. About
Okay.
200 kilowatt. So
All
either we
right.
have to manufacture those type of machinery, but I think there is a large scope where these kind of how the China is doing. They're like thinking of 15 years. They
Yeah.
manufactured that motor 15 years back. Now also we are purchasing, but whole control is there,
Yeah.
and the magnets are really crazy. Last year we had a real difficulty where the magnets are not available. Hence the motor is not
Oh,
produced in India.
wow.
And
This
even
is
though we
like
have an
when,
order, we have to stay for the 5-10 days to get that.
yeah, yeah. And that can
So
really harm everything down the line from there,
yeah,
downstream from
it's
there.
not only for us, like big companies like a TVS Motors, they are also
Yeah.
depending on this.
This was
That,
also in the pandemic, people weren't getting their computer chips, right? So it was the
huh.
same. Yeah.
Now also the RAM prices also shooting up.
Yeah,
So it's like that.
I understand. But glad that we located and surfaced some of this. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. Anyone else who has their hand up?
Yeah, Dr.
Yes.
Amrita from Arogyam has her
Yeah.
hand up.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, after the last session, actually, I was thinking about the dependencies that we might have. And then one incident happened, the change of regulatory compliance requirement.
Ooh,
Constantly it is changing.
right,
Not only in India, throughout the world. EU, US, FSSI, they keep on changing these cut-off values based
yeah,
on which we are actually developing our softwares and devices.
right.
So
And we
this
didn't
is,
talk about regulatory frameworks at all.
no,
That's a
no,
great one to bring to the floor.
yeah. So it's a basically a very important part in our business.
Yeah. And what did you do immediately as soon as they changed?
We have to modify the softwares. We brought in some modifications, some tweaking.
So there's a cost, there's a resourcing, all of that is attached to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's something
We
to think
had to
about.
send someone from Calcutta to Rajasthan to manage the situation, to make
Right.
the customer happy, to make
Yep.
their operations go on. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Big one. And right off
yeah,
the back of the last session. Thank you for sharing
absolutely.
that with us. Anyone else? I see one
Doc,
more hand up.
yeah, we have one more. Dr. Manisha from Open Field. Yeah.
Hi, hi.
Hi.
I'm Manisha from the Open Field. Definitely from the last session, a lot has changed. I would say not something, but a lot has changed. We have been seeing we are on ground as well for the NTFP collection. This is the Mahua season as well. So our
Yeah.
understanding was where that the open field sits in the value chain has become much more clearer. One thing
Mm-hmm.
which we have now see ourselves not just a forest produce enterprise, but as an enabler that helps shifting, the processing, the traceability and market, which is closer to the forest community. That is
Right.
something which we have realized.
That's
We are also
fantastic.
we're also thinking more clearly now on the about the restoration alignment, who carries the most risk. As we said,
Mhm.
definitely one thing which has come out, which I think Krishi Carbon has already pointed out, the community and the market dependency, same goes with us as well. And
Right.
how execution, consistency, and trust and local ownership, what we have realized, because our entire team is on ground right now, is something
Yeah.
which we are realizing it has been a lot which has currently matter. So a lot has
Absolutely.
changed. And we are seeing
Thanks
our
so much.
role, particularly in case of Mawa, because now it has become seasonal. And this
Right.
particular season, there's a drastic drop in the production capacity, which was there,
Mm.
which was not there in past 3 years. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the real need of not just buying or selling, but how can we work with the community on reducing the loss or the, improving the storage and processing that has done better. And through that, with our indications, our key metrics have changed a little bit ups and downs. So that is something which I really appreciate.
This is super interesting, and I'm glad you said 3 years because I think I was out there in the fourth year before the last 3 years, where literally everyone on the ground was just saying jungle ka fasal acha nahi hua is saal, jungle ka fasal acha nahi hai is saal. And I was like, so what does that mean, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm glad all of this surfaced for all of you all. It is really important that we, as a group, we share this as a cohort because what's happening today with one person may happen with someone else 3 years later, right? And why not learn from the situation today? Like the regulatory framework thing, we did not discuss that,
Absolutely.
right? So if something changes in regulatory frameworks for everybody or in a specific part of the system, you will have had the experience of having a cohort. You can speak to someone and say, how did you deal with it? So please also lean into each other as a cohort. I think that's one of the great strengths you all have. But thank you all so much for sharing this with me. I'm going to move us along in the interest of time. Sorry, but really happy that that resonated. Okay. Okay, now we're going to move on. So now we're going to talk a bit about patterns from the first session. And here, I understand that a lot of you took this away with you. But one of the things I feel is really important to also think about is sort of articulating some of these things for yourselves. So if your position clarity is still emerging or has gotten better, actually write it down. If your differentiation of opportunities exists, like we just talked about, whether it should be centered around millets or should it be more things, think about that, articulate it. I always find it really interesting to look back on notes across 3 years and 5 years and see that those were learning moments. We all now recognize that dependency dynamics deserve attention. Like all of these dependencies are places where you will have to have constant attention because they are dynamic. They're not static. That's another thing to recognize. Every single thing that one of you said is a dynamic part of the system. It's not a standard set thing that you can manage or you can evade. And finally, restoration outcomes often require multiple partners. I'm sure everyone here already recognizes this, but I think it's something to think about. Are these patterns the patterns that resonate with you, or are there other things that came up? If there are, please do put them in the chat in terms of patterns across everybody. Um, and here, if there are other people who, if there are people from Wilgrow and from WRI who saw other patterns that we should capture, that would be great to keep an eye on as well, and I can work that with you later. Moving on from here, now we're going to section 3. So if you filled the reflection 1 on your section, on your worksheet, section 2 was just again recognizing where you sit in the chain. Section 2 was, are you an enabler? Are you a direct restorer? Is that the worksheet you're working on? Just someone give me a heads up that that is where we're at. And we're going to section 3 now. Okay, everyone here for section 3? Yeah? Come on, Jess.
Yeah, if you've all reached here, you could maybe just put a thumbs up reaction or just confirm to us that you're here.
And I know some of you wanted to fill the worksheets later. That's totally fine. I just want us to be on the same page as we go through this. Shall I go ahead, Ananya?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, great. So now that we've done this, in section 3, you're actually going to try and flesh out what your positioning is in terms of relationships, in technology, access, and integration. If you tick, so here what I want you to do is we've asked you to tick the defensibility source in the worksheet, right? And then what I want you to do is write one sentence to explain why that defensibility holds and one sentence of where it could fail. So, is it the relationships? Is it the technology? Is it just access? Like you have access to multiple different things and you can put them all together. Is it integration? Are you the node that makes sure different silos are connected? Think about these and then write this down. We're going to wait a little bit here for people to write. And then if people want to share, they can raise their hands. But really take 3 minutes to write this. And don't worry about getting it wrong. This is currently just be intuitive with it. What you feel is the most defensible source, like your source of defensibility of why you are the person who should be doing this, why your startup is the one that should be the startup that does the work you're doing. And then we'll get into it more in the next few slides.
In case anyone does need any clarity on the points, please don't hesitate to ask Dr. Amrita or just put it in the chat.
Yeah, if this is seeming a little abstract, just feel free for us to give you an example and we can do that.
Can I get in? I have a question to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Sudha here. So
Yeah.
we are a soil health tech company. We work with farmers. And I wanted to know, what do we understand by access? Is it accessibility of technology or what is it?
So here it's more like, do you have access to, for soil health tech, I think it might be, do you have access to the different kinds of tests, the software that you're building, like all of this kind of stuff, do you need it? Or do you need specific resources? And do you have that already? So here access is like, for an example, someone who's working on forest produce, do they actually have access to forest land? Or are they only getting it from someone else who has access to forest land? Do you directly talk to your sort of sources, or are there intermediaries in that step? Think about it like that. All of it may not apply to you, especially if you're doing specific tech solutions. But if not, think about where it actually is. So let's read out some of these. For access, we just went through it. If you have actually access to all of this. In technology, maybe you hold a proprietary patent or a method, or you have a platform that is your very unique platform. Then that it creates a functional. This is basically saying how quickly could someone else just copycat you, right? And where do you have the upper edge in that? Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else who has concerns or clarifications here, I can totally help out. Okay, and as soon as you've finished this section 3, defensibility on your worksheet, just put a thumbs up so we know how many people have gotten through it, and then we can move on. Or you can just unmute and say, yeah, we're done with section 3.
Done with section 3, but I still have confusions. I
Okay.
feel like I feel all the pointers I'm kind of fitting somewhere or the other. So that is where the confusion is.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's a natural tendency because you have a clear framework in your mind and you can see the different connections. I think here really think about what separates you from a competing firm or a competing entity. And really, sometimes it just comes down to having great relationships in place. Sometimes it just comes down to having great trust in your team. It could be something simple like that. And if it's not on here, but that feels like the strongest differentiator to you, write that down.
Okay.
Okay, great. And I had a few things to say in the patterns thing. I think one of the things that was great from your worksheets, I made a few notes, so I'm just going to take this moment to talk about your worksheets. And on the positioning clarity, remember we did all the different things that you can do. Gramya's worksheet was very honest. They, like we just talked about, named a single crop concentration. That was great self-awareness to come out of that. Krishi named the market collapse would break, community benefit delivery, which is a huge one because you're out to serve those communities. And I think Agrazid said that their restoration contribution was they recognize the adjacency of their work compared to an enabler and a direct restorer, and that is honest. And it's also going to give you great clarity when you pitch. So I thought that was great from your worksheets. Thank you for submitting them. And on this one, I think what's really interesting is that Arogyam wrote that we are the intelligence and trust layer, right? Without us, the system doesn't stop, it loses its intelligence. And that's exactly the kind of strong positioning that we're looking for you all to find in this particular exercise in section 3, which is to basically say that what is defensible about you as an entity. So think about it like that. And really, some of this is coming off of your worksheets already. So that's great. I'm going to move us along here, but if someone does need a minute, please say so right now and we'll hold till we get to the next part.
Just if we can hold for a minute.
Okay, great. Ananya, if you can let us know when we should move on, then we will.
Yeah, no comments or hands per se. I think if we just want to do a quick check on how many of you are done, if you can just raise your hands because that'll give us a at a glance view. That would be good. Yeah, I see. I see 3 hands. I'm hoping the rest are somewhere along the section. If there is any pertinent question, we could maybe quickly take that or just move along. Yeah, I think
More
most of,
hands.
most, we can move
Okay.
on.
Manisha, I hope this was good enough time, but if not,
Yes,
we
yes,
can
done.
circle back to this on the worksheet later on. We're going to move on here. So what you should have found on your section 3 is that your networks matter. Technology alone many times may be insufficient. Embeddedness matter. And what does embeddedness really mean? That you know each other, like you know your producers and you know your value chain stakeholders, which means that you've been embedded in the system for long enough. Now, when you're starting something new, how can you be embedded? You can do it in the place that is most familiar to you. Like if I was to start a new research lab, I would start it in MP Chhattisgarh, in a specific part of MP Chhattisgarh that was most familiar to me. Because a lot of the other variables will sort of collapse into familiarity that at least I can deal when something changes. So that's one way why embeddedness matters, even if you're starting something new. And of course, trust matters, right? You can build trust all your life and lose it really quickly. So that is one of the key tenets of being a social enterprise. And so maybe you want to do this right now. Um, but if you don't feel like we had a bit of a chat about defensibility, if people want to throw it into the chat, please do so. Otherwise, we can also move along. But if a few of you can drop what you wrote on section 3 into the chat, that would be really great. And if anyone from the teams organizing this, if you'd like to jump in as well about more defensibility, and especially for the startup pool that we have today, this is a space to do that as well. Yeah, yeah, Dr. Sudha.
Yeah. So I would like to point out, like once a customer is integrated into our system, switching becomes difficult for him.
Mm.
So that is the dependability we bring in.
So you're a very sticky enterprise.
We are sticky enterprise for a customer to come in,
Yeah.
and we wish we don't lose him. So that way we are interacting with him and trying to provide every 6 months some new updates, some new
And do you see
services.
that? Do you see that as customer retention, or is it deeper? Is it more just like this is how people will trust us to do the work, or is it more this is part of the core service provision?
Yeah, we are moving more towards the service provision, uh,
Mhm.
giving it a holistic approach to a farmer. So initially, we are entering as a soil health tech company, but as
Mhm.
we go along, see, it should be an identification factor to him also. Soil
Right.
means they should remember only Arka Shine. So that is the way we are trying to handhold him. So
Yeah.
we identified few points where he needs us.
Okay.
So he will not come directly and say soil. He's telling something else. We are relating it to
Mhm.
soil and giving him a service.
Right.
That's
That's
how.
that's really smart, and I think um, especially in small enterprises or startups, having stickiness is very, very important because as you scale, that's really important. Was that? Thank you for sharing with that with us. Anyone else wants to jump in here?
Divya from the WRI team has her hand up.
Yeah.
Divya, if you want to.
Thanks. I thought I'll just quickly come in. I'm sorry I'm not able to turn on my camera facing tech issues today. Um, but just a quick thought, and maybe some of the enterprises here can think of it like this. Something that we've been discussing from the beginning of this program is that we are focused on growing the restoration economy in the three central Indian states, right? So our state focus is very clear: Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra. Right. So having said that, we recognize that many of you also have operations in other states, or you started in other states, but are either making plans to sort of expand your operations to either one or more of these central Indian states, or you already have a footprint that you're planning to grow. Right. Given those sort of factors which are distinct for each one of you, how would you think of embeddedness? What happens? Where do you think your strongest foothold is, and how does that change when you scale your business to newer geographies? So that's something, food for thought, and I'll leave it to you, to think of it, give it some thought, and if you want to share some answers in your worksheets or on this call, happy to listen in.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Divya. That's actually so fabulous. Thanks for routing us back to the geographies of Central India. And I think one of the things in terms of embeddedness is also Central India is peculiar like many other regions of India, right? Like, so if you've worked in the Western Ghats, Karnataka, parts of Kerala, just as peculiar as they are, Central India is too. And so embeddedness is what will give you a foothold, or how will you actually already have that foothold, like the way I was saying. Definitely something to think about. Thank you for rooting us back there.
Would anyone else like to come in here? We've not heard much from Agrozi, Navok. If you guys would like to put your thoughts in the chat box. So, yeah. I think Nagasai has his hand up. Yeah, you can go.
Yeah, I think while I was thinking through it, I think in the initial stage we do multiple things, right? As in all of them will be a part. At least in our case, Krishi Carbon, I think network matters,
Yeah.
technology matters. But what is that one thing we are not replaceable? I think I was also thinking about that value proposition, right? From a customer point of view, maybe there I think for us like largely network is where we'll not someone would not be able to replicate easily right now. I think that's what right now we could think of, because technology as such today, and at least in today's era, I think
It
it's
translates
overnight.
very quickly.
Things
Yeah.
can change with
Yeah.
overnight, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah, and that's actually a
that
really valid thing. Even in research, what happens is that you'll find that a lot of research happens in different parts of India, primarily the Northeast and the Western Ghats first. And after that is when Central India actually gets some attention. So a lot of the research that I've done, it's not like nobody has ever done it before. They've done it in different geographies and found completely different things. So I really hear you on how geographical foothold and especially embeddedness will be a differentiator. If a new person enters this market, they're going to find it a lot harder to navigate just Central India or that part of Central India.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because largely I think distribution channels largely, I think how do you reach to community, right? Because there is no standard SOP in which, at least the type of businesses we are in, there is no standard
Yeah.
SOP in which how do you gain the trust of the community, all of that. I think that's where maybe the defensibility, but I think the hard part of it is while you go for fundraise, this doesn't matter, as in people
Yeah.
don't understand this as much.
Right.
So there, I think
I
it's
think
more
this is one
orient.
thing
I think,
that's, yeah, I think you brought
yeah.
up a really important thing. When we do our actual articulation of positioning, let's try and do some of that. Let's try and position why you all as enterprise founders or enterprise managers in this area are the ones who can actually do this. Let's try and codify that a little bit because it's really important. And if we can't tell funders that, if we can't communicate the importance of that to funders, then that's on us. Them still not hearing it, on them. But we can at least try to articulate it better. Does that help? I think that's a solid point.
Yeah. Because right now the struggle is largely there because today I think a lot of it is skewed towards tech. So we are
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Tech is great, but tech needs all of these other things to actually land.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move past this section. If anyone else has more, even if you think of things along the different slides and you want to put them in chat, please go ahead. So here is where we're going to sort of do this on your worksheets. Section 4 is sort of going to flesh out who benefits and what that benefit is, right? And we did a little bit of that in terms of map your value chain, but here I really just want you to think about the different setups in your value chain and then actually just be like, what is the value created for each of these folk? So take a few minutes, not too long. We're going to keep this very tight. Whatever comes first to your mind, please write that down in section 4. You should see sections for farmers or your sources, FPOs and SHGs, sort of institutions that are bigger than them that can be sort of enabled. And then, of course, buyers. So if you can look at your section 4 and fill it in, then we'll go further. And if a box is empty, let's say you can't really think of what to fill for one of these, then that's something to think about. That's a gap that you've identified. Because they are very likely in the system. They are very likely operating with others in the system who might be listed and who you can clearly say that we add value for. But if you're not interacting with them, that's definitely a gap that you will identify. So just please take 3 minutes and fill the worksheet. You'll recognize how much more interactive this session has gotten over the last one, but that's by design. I'll give it a minute and then we can move on. And if anyone feels like, no, they're in the middle of filling it, please raise your hand and say roll back. The sort of guiding question here is, why do any of these buckets of stakeholders or actors, why do they care that you exist? Okay, show of hands that we can move on.
One hand so far.
Okay, as soon as
Yes.
I see your hands going up, I feel like we've gotten some
Yeah.
momentum here. Okay, and so here we're going to stop and we're going to look at section 5 after you filled in that section 2, section 4, sorry, about what is the value that you added to everyone. And so in this, who carries the most risks? We sort of touched on this a little bit, but now that you have all the different people where you add value, who carries the most risk in your current model? Is it you? Is it your farmers, your buyers, partners? What is the most fragile assumption? The one thing, if it turned out to be wrong, might, change what you're building. So let's say, like we just talked about, how millets are now being one of the major millet buyers is the government. So what does that mean, right? What's your most fragile assumption? And of course, what breaks when you try to scale? These are all deep questions, and I'm not looking for your perfect answers. I'm just looking for first thoughts that you can come up with. And these are the questions, like it says on the slide, that most startups avoid. One of the reasons we're really going into some of these fairly uncomfortable spaces early on, I think, is to set the ground that this is where you build. This is where you build out what is uncomfortable. And so if you're feeling a little shy and not wanting to share, that's fine. Please do work through your worksheets. This is not that you must share everything, but you must at least be able to go through the exercise. Can someone name, we had a few more people name their risk, but no one's named assumptions. Can someone name assumptions in the chat? If someone fill that.
Just confirming with Dr. Sudha and Jain sir if the hands were up from the previous round. Okay.
So they are from the previous year. Thank you.
Okay. If any of you would feel more comfortable putting your points in chat, you can do so, and I'll just read that out. Yeah, Nagasai has his hand up.
Yeah, I think I would want to share on the assumption piece also, apart from the risk. I think risk in this current model, at least we are carrying the most of the risk because buyers anyway pay when they have the credits, and to community there is nothing much paid. They are getting paid in this one, right? So there's not too much of risk offloading that we have done as of now, at least. So in terms of risk, I think first is very clear. I think at least today, at least the financial side of things is what we are carrying right now. And I think one of the biggest fragile assumption overall, I think ecosystem point of view, solely relying on the price of the credit, right? I think if it drops out tomorrow, I think today it's very nascent market, but if tomorrow, I think everyone's question is more on if it drops to 50% or if it doesn't buy, right?
Yeah.
Because this is not a commodity where there's a compliance around it. It's largely voluntary. So betting on it, I think, is like one of the biggest overall model risk, business risk. And there are like a lot of other assumptions that as you go to building that model, right?
But let's dig into that a little bit, right? Your business sort of rests on that assumption.
Yeah. Like this has to be $90. So
yeah.
in terms of
So if it falls, what happens? Do you shut shop? Do you tell the people who you're going to give credits to that you're not going to give them credits? What happens?
Yeah. So there, I think at least right now, the model at least we had because we have to diversify. I think right now the way we are right now looking at is build a path towards grant also, where while this stabilizes, that's where we are thinking. But shedding shop, I think, will not happen as long as but it's more on then you tell your story better. I think what we are seeing
Right.
it as, I think they're both sides of the coin. It's not a evolved or matured market, so there are not standardization, right?
And I think that's partly why it's risky, right? Like if it was a mature
Yeah.
market, a lot of this volatility would have disappeared. So
Yeah.
it's the big bet for a good outcome.
Yeah, big. I think it's more like it's a make or break, to be honest. I think that's where things are.
Sure.
But there is a way to make it. I think always as an entrepreneur, you try to optimize for the one side of things where this might work out, right? I think that's where things are right now. For us, it was more on maybe we build that relationship with the buyer that there's not too much of competition also, to be honest, when the evolving markets. Maybe those are the advantages that we could see it as, but yeah.
And let's look at the bottom line here. So when these credits are actually given out, where do they go, right? And how responsible will you be to them should the price volatility hurt?
I think these anyway community side there is all front loaded payments. I think there is nothing that we have to pay back to community. So it is more on hit on our P&L if things doesn't happen. I think largely that's it's
so
a moral
really
risk
you are the
and
risk holder. You are the risk
risk,
holder.
yeah, and investors basically. So both.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Anything from you just quickly on what will break if you scale? You said different geographies or no? That'll be fine.
I think geographies will still be fine because at least the model right now. I think what will break if when you try to scale 10x, I think largely more on the execution piece in terms of at least in the QC part of credibility of the credits, right? That will break first because we have to prove that they are credible still at the 10x scale. So maybe that will break first.
We have a couple more hands, so I'm going to move us along. But thanks so much for sharing that.
We also have a few points in the chat box. So I think, Dr. Manish, if you would like to, yours is the first, so maybe you can, yeah.
Yeah, my most fragile assumption was definitely in terms of, the assumption in the market access or the institutional support when we say in the side of the government linked NTFPs, because there are certain Nistar Act, for example, that kind of regulate different geographies. It's different in Maharashtra, different in Orissa, different in Chhattisgarh, or in Jharkhand as well. So that is which will be my most fragile assumption that will remain, reliable as we scale. So that is something which is there. And then again, I'm also confused in this one. We have to, get into it. What breaks first at scale? What I am thinking is the coordination first, because we are in this entire value chain. I think the community network, the quality system, especially the buyers or the institutional side linked to the entire value chain of particularly NTFP. So I feel like the coordination is something which break first.
I actually do absolutely agree with you. I think the assumption is at least something you can deal with, like the fact that some of these, sort of foundational setups might change is something you can say, okay, state by state, it'll be different. But I think the coordination is non-trivial in a startup like yours. It is really what will hold everything together. And so I think one of the things to really be, I think what's great about these sessions is it surfaces these things, and then you know where a lot of your effort as a founder can go. You can forecast that in year 2, year 4, I'll be all about coordination, about making sure that happens. Maybe in year 1, I'll be all about making sure that this risk is mitigated or in some way nullified. So it's to pave that path for you. And I'm glad this is surfacing here. And thank you for engaging so deeply with these slides and these questions. Anyone else have their hand up?
We have 4 comments. I can maybe go 2 at a time.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one comment from Namrata of Khedat Samriddhi. She says the assumption is the fragile assumption is that vermicompost heals the land significantly. And Jayant sir from Nature Connect has said our most fragile assumption is that consumers will be ready to pay premium price for high quality natural products. Yeah, there's 3 more, but maybe I'll stop here and then take the rest.
No, that's fine. I think just surface all of them, Ananya.
All right.
And
Okay, sure. So we'll do that. Then Dr. Sudha from Arkashine has said that their most fragile assumption is the farmer will take the soil test, and it takes a lot of awareness to be created before the farmer even agrees to take that service. Dr. Amrita from Arogyam has said the model assumes strong farmer awareness and consistent data capture. And Prajwal from Osilo has said that the dependency and scale are interrelated in their case. So QC may snap or slip up in scale, and our fragile assumption is that aspiration of small and marginal farmers is to look for smaller machines with low efficiency in terms of time. In case any of you would like to add further to what has been put in the chat, please feel free
I
to
think
comment.
I think these are great. I think it's a great collection of things. So you have all the way from production can be hampered completely out of control, and we're making an assumption that that will be steady, to the tech that we rely on will actually only be able to scale as much as that tech partner goes with us. I really want people to spend some time on this farmer adoption piece, because what you're asking is not just for your assumption that they will do it, but it's also seeking their consent and trust, like they are betting on you, right, in some manner. So that's something to think about. If someone adopts your way, whether it's soil health, whether it's to do with taking some product from them, they are making a bet on you, and you are subsequently making a bet on a market. So these risks and these costs accrue at the bottom line. So just think about that. Yeah. Anyone else?
Aprajita had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to kind of talk about the part on awareness that was there, because this was a theme that we were seeing from the cohort onboarding workshop as well. And as we were going through the baseline surveys and conversations that we're having right now with the cohort members, it seems that on the value chain, when it comes to our agri input as well as soil health testing and diagnostic services, um, our cohort members and enterprise members there may feel that they may have a different starting point as compared to where they're able to show conversion. And when they're reporting impact as well, they're struggling a little bit more. And that's a consistent thread that I see. And one of the assumptions, again, that is coming again in the chat box is around that how do we make farmers understand that it starts with agri input, it starts with soil health testing, what is the importance of these diagnostic services, and at the end how do we relate this, because we ourselves right now is struggling to relate this with two, let's say, quantitative metrics that we're looking at, which is the number of hectares under restoration or conservation, or number of trees that have been conserved, right, especially again on number of hectares under restoration. So maybe some of you may want to talk about assumptions and risks that you carry more, wherein you need more systemic support, and carry on those threads and kind of address those concerns or just voice them out here, so that the entire cohort is aware of them.
Yeah. And Aprajita, could I just respond to the two things you brought up as well before we move on? Yeah, so one of the things I would like you to think about that in terms of farmer awareness, right? There isn't a farmer on the planet who doesn't understand that soil is important. I think the assumption breaks down is, why do I need this specific help to ensure that soil is important? So I think when we do farmer awareness, we don't need to start with soil is important. Lend that gravitas to them. Say, soil is where it starts. We're trying to help. And so then you are part of the support and not the person with the expertise. They still hold expertise in farming. You're just there to support, and perhaps you are the expert in what you've created that will help them. Whether it's the vermicomposting training, whether it's the actual tech, or the soil health test. So just the framing sometimes really changes how collaborative and how much trust gets built initially. So that's something to think about. In terms of restoration direct impact, I do not think we should be so worried about how many trees we've managed to save, how much forest we've managed to save. I think what you have to really build a case for, especially with the adjacency that you have in a few of you in the cohort, what you really have to build for is this idea that if we don't do this, business as usual continues to destroy. Without my actual intervention, there is a larger amount of deforestation, degradation that is going to happen. Your case in adjacency is to be clear about that, is to say we provide value because we essentially avoid some degradation somewhere by providing better value on this piece of land, by making incomes higher, by making sure that production actually reaches market, all of those things. So you should not shy away from your exact role. It's a case of how you frame your actual impact. It does not always have to be how much forest was saved or how much farming land has gone back into restoration. Um, yeah, I just wanted to say that. Yeah, we're all good here. I'm going to move us along in the interest of time. Um, and so here is where we're really going to think about exactly what we've just come to fairly naturally is how aligned you are with restoration. So what actually changes on the land, water, or biodiversity? Just what we were talking about, that adjacency. What is your evidence? What happens? What is there a direct, indirect, or adjacent contribution? And to be honest here, doesn't diminish your work. It really just makes sure that you can pitch better. So here is section 6, and we can take this section and you can fill it in. But I was also going to say, while you're doing that, whoever gets around to doing this first, like go piece by piece. But when you are actually finishing this, in the chat, someone put, like at least a few of you put, because of us, this changes on this much land or ecosystem. And here again, what does this mean? If you're a direct enabler, this sentence is really, if you're a direct restorer, this is a really easy sentence. If you're an enabler, maybe it's a different sentence, but it's a sentence like, because of us, this change happens that aids this restoration or this ecosystem or this community. And the mechanism, right? So this is your essential positioning. And your alignment with restoration as a system. Please go ahead and fill. And if anyone needs any clarifications, I'm here. Actually, I'll also take a minute to have water, and I'll be back. Everyone can see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. And any questions or clarifications with section 6 on your worksheets?
No questions in the chat box or any hands raised, but if anyone wants to come in here and quickly ask, we can do that.
And it's also fine if you're just filling in. We can do the worksheet. That's totally fine as well. Because this is more, if the last session was more abstract, this is really in the nitty-gritty of what you're doing.
So Dr. Sudha has already put in a response. Would you like to wait a bit for the others, or I can just
No,
start?
we can go one by one
Sure.
while the others are doing.
So yeah, what she said is, because of us, farmers are able to reduce fertilizer inputs by 8 to 10% without affecting yield through a simple soil test via VLE support system.
Okay.
And Aprajita also has her hand up, so I'll just let her come in.
No, I just want to come in as a nudge. We've had conversations with, I think, at least 5 to 6 enterprises today itself. Very intense conversations.
God,
Payal
okay.
and me on restoration alignment. So I'm really hoping to hear from you all, because the data that you've quantified on what you're doing in restoration, the mechanism and the evidence, direct, indirect, adjacent contribution, you should have it off the tip of your tongues right now, and
They've
on your
done a
baseline survey responses.
They've done a much bigger worksheet on just this already. I think one from your previous worksheets was from Navrok?
Navok, that's right.
Navok said that, I'm going to read this out. They said that the farmer is leading the restoration and they are making the farmers more robust, right? So in that, there is a very clear adjacency and it's honest. And that is what is going to become the kind of positioning statement you can use. It's far more credible than asking investors by overclaiming what your restoration impact is or erroneously claiming what your restoration impact is. Anyone else, Ananya? Otherwise, we can.
No, nothing in the chat yet or no
Okay.
raised hands.
Okay for us to move along. I know a lot of you did this. A lot of you have always already done this today, so we can move along from here. And you could use your baseline information as well. But as Aprajita said, a lot of you have this information, so please do share. Jayant, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I just because I went through the cohort and what they do, I think what that is my suggestion, because for us Nature Connect, it's pretty straightforward how we link it to restoration and how we measure it. But a lot of times we do not understand what happens below ground, how
Right.
how our interventions actually contribute to improving the health of microbial diversity. And I think these are the things that also the cohort members would rather say gain from this kind of knowledge or some information that we could share with them, because otherwise their contribution or their efforts might not get I mean the impact they are creating might not get captured. That is what my suggestion was.
Absolutely. And below ground is a few of you work with below ground biodiversity, health, and soil health is very critical to restoration.
Extremely, yeah. So that was my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. Jayant, if you'd like to share more, Jayant, if you'd like to send some resources to the cohort, I think they'd be well received.
I'll just tell you one what we did. We did a case study for IUCN on soil health and how from the farm to landscape, what are the criteria and what do you need to measure if you really need to understand how it is contributing to improving the soil health. I think probably that study would be ready, also must be available in the public domain. If it is not there, I'll share with the cohort so that they understand, and they probably done the study, but I think it would definitely just help them think about all these aspects. Otherwise, they'll say, no, but we don't know, because biodiversity is pretty complex. It's not something we can say, no, what I see on the ground. No, but a lot of people do not know the role of fungi in improving soil health. Or, I think how how your impact, I mean, your activities or what you do is contributing to that. If you know that indicator, then only you're going to measure it. Otherwise, it will go unnoticed. And I think it's a lost opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think to just broaden that, biodiversity is really complex, but so is social systems that you inhabit. So think about indicators like farmers, how are they, is there any feedback loop you have if you're working with farmers directly for them to tell you whether they think this is something that is adjacent or aligned with them restoring their farming. That's another thing to think about. But yeah, we can move on from here unless there are more hands up. Ananya?
There are no hands, but we got 3 comments while the conversation was going. Yeah, 4 now. Did anyone else want to come in? Prajwal, I think you were saying something.
So there is a direct and indirect contributions. Like so, we directly don't track actually the farmer once we sell the machines. So my question is like whether they are there are many aspects of restorations come into the picture with a single machines. Either they can do the soil preparation or they can produce the manure, which is much more quality efficient than without our machine intervention. So either I'm confused between whether I am direct impacting or indirect impacting as well.
I think so. If the choices are they either use your machines or they have to actually get very high quality manure, then you are direct impaction to soil health restoration, to farming restoration, but you are indirect impact to restoration goals across the state, which will be more about avoidance of degradation of further lands because farming will have to magnify their impact if they're not efficient. So if you increase efficiency, there's 2 ways you are. If you're restorative and increase efficiency, it's double your impact. Does that
For
help?
an example, if you take a DSR or the transplanting mechanism,
Right.
we try to encourage the farmer, not only our transplanter, if they want to use any transplanter, they have to reduce the plowing timings, and the preparation of the land has to be like reduced by 50-60%, then only the machine efficiency will be higher. So that's how indirect way of communicating, not only our mission, but any other mission you want to use, that is a way of
Right.
restoring, and practices will need to be followed. So
Yeah.
whether count as a direct or then
I think you can
I
count
think
it
it's
as direct because
direct.
restoration, I think you would count it as direct for restoring farmland, and you
Uh,
would call it indirect for restoring habitats. So if you're thinking of restoring habitats that are more aligned with climate change or with forestry, then it's a very indirect impact. But if you think of restoration of farmland directly, then it's a direct impact. Okay,
it's a
so
complete
it depends on
dependency.
who you're speaking to, right? Because
Yeah.
like we talked about, the system is in layers.
Hmm.
And so how much you will impact one layer will be a direct impact. And then you may have indirect impact across those layers. Okay, great. Ananya, do you want to go through the comments in the
Sure.
chat?
Yeah, I'll do that. So Hitesh from Gramya Ventures has said they're transitioning farmers from chemical intensive crops like rice to millets, improving soil health and reducing water usage, and introducing bio inputs for soil health. Then Dr. Manisha from the open field has said because of us, post-harvest loss reduces, local value addition increases, and community incomes can improve by 2 to 5 times. We do this through local processing, traceability, and better market access, which creates stronger incentives to protect and sustain standing forests. Prajwal had put in that because of them, climate-friendly agricultural practices among farmers are accelerated, encouraging them to practice restoration, and this reduces the input costs by about 30 to 40% per acre. And Namrata from Khedut Samriddhi has said we directly contribute to healing the land by offering farmers organic inputs and training and guidance.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's excellent because what you've all done as a cohort is essentially draft out your first position statement. Okay. That's basically what you've done. Some of these are very concrete, some of these are very value laden and not as concrete. So think about in your pitch, how will you combine those two worlds? You need it to be value laden because that's where you want to go and that you want to carry your values into these conversations. And then you want to be precise. That framing, because of us, this changes for these folk in this way. That is the pieces of your positioning. Why are you important and what are you doing and why does it make that important for the bottom line? Okay, I'm going to move us along from here. Um, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a hot seat feedback thing. We're going to try and keep this fairly tight, but what I need is a little bit of support here. Ananya, could we put everyone here into three groups?
Sure.
One group watches for replaceability. So your job will be to look at how another enterprise could step in and do the same thing that someone is saying very quickly. So you're like that check. The next one is going to be value clarity, which is basically the next group will test how people's sentence can be better because of how does this what happens because of this startup. Are you clear? Right? So value clarity. And the third one is restoration alignment. If we could just split into three groups, that would be great. We're all going to work together. We don't need to be in breakout rooms.
Sure. Okay. Um, this could be just like in any order or
Random
thematically.
pairing. No,
Random.
random pairing.
Okay, so maybe for group one, we can do, I'm just going to go off my screen itself. We can go with Navok. We can go with Arogyam, just trying to mix up the thematics here. And maybe we can do Gramya Ventures. So that could be group one to, the first
Yeah.
group.
So the three of you, please put in the chat that you are team watch for replaceability. So we know who you are.
Yeah, so just to repeat, it's Arogyam, Gramya, and Navok. Then if we can have Agrozy, Arca Shine, and Nature Connect in the next group. So Jayant sir, Mahesh ji, and Dr. Sudha.
And you'll be value clarity. Is the startup being very clear about what they do and who is better off? for it.
Yeah, and then we'll have 4 in the last group, right? Just to
That's fine.
Yeah. So
That's
that would
fine.
be Oscillo, Krishi, and Open Field, and I'm missing one startup, I think. Sorry. Yeah,
Namrata's got a hand
Khed
up. There you go.
Samriddhi. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, Namrata. That's right. So Oscillo,
Okay.
Khed Samriddhi, Krishi, and Open Field can be in the last group. Yeah.
Great. And so because you're all in a group, some of your own statements are going to come up here. Okay. So Manisha's statement was in the chat, right? From Open Field, Ananya.
Yes. Yeah.
So
That's right.
could you read that out and right now have the first group talk to us about replaceability? If we read that out, just read out the.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll just, read her comment again. Because of us, post-harvest loss reduces, local value addition increases, and community incomes can improve by 2 to 5 times. We do this through local processing, traceability, and better market access, which creates stronger incentives to protect and sustain standing forests. So yeah, group
Okay.
1.
So group 1, what do we think about replaceability? Has it been mentioned in this? Is it not very clear? Could another enterprise step in and do exactly this within 12 months? When you hear that statement, respond to just the replaceability. And respond to just this question. Could another enterprise step in and do this in 12 months? Just unmute yourself and jump in here.
Yeah, so Hitesh, do you want to go?
So yeah, in case of Manisha, I can say yeah, because I've not seen anything very like technical or IP based thing. So things are replaceable where like other people or other enterprise can come into the picture. They can deploy their resources like a procurement or some kind of validation at a grassroots level and do the procurement of material because we're talking about the NTF we produce like Mahua. So already there is a market and there are players. So someone can pitch in and can procure and build their supply chain. Yeah.
So Hitesh, if I had to ask you, and Manisha jump in here as well. So Hitesh, if I needed to ask you, what does Manisha need to add in that position statement to compel that the replaceability becomes low?
Yeah. So I can see like when the session started, we talk about the two things like the trust and the technology, and then we talk about the access. So I feel like if technology is not there, we can more focus on the trust and access part, where we can say over the period of 6 year, 10 year, we have built this trust with the FPOs, with the farmers, and with our partners. And we can say the access we have with the tribal communities, with the forest land, nobody can access that there.
Right. And so that should be part of Manisha's positioning statement. Manisha, do
Yeah.
you want to jump in here and respond to this conversation we're having?
Yes. I also, partly agree with Titeshi also. Technology alone is definitely not insufficient, but then with our technology is something which creates value only when it works closely with the community adaptation and accessibility, what we are talking about. It work parallelly with that and the local execution along with that, and then going towards the market access. So
Would
agreeing to that,
it be a good articulation to say the open field has such deep roots that another
yes.
player could come and try and do this, but will not be able to?
Yes, that is one of the tagline what we have, like connecting farmers and empowering communities. We have a very strong on-ground appearance. That is why even the technology alone, sometimes if we say that it is not sufficient, but what we say technology alone will not work. Even if somebody from a tech background will come into picture, it will only work with closely of community adaptations along with that local executions and the coordination which I was telling, which we have been making it strong, and along with that market access. That is something which is
Right.
embedded here. Then that
Right.
matters. Yeah.
Yeah, Aprajita, jump in here.
So I want to come in here. So technology does not always have to be a part of the solution. This is what I want to add in, because for open field, I know for one thing that they are working on using technology for data monitoring as well as validation. So maybe Openfield, Dr. Manisha, you want to come in and talk about that, because that is a value add that other market players that are there in the NTFP value chains don't have, and that traceability has a huge value that is there. So maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, and as I said, the Prajita, the embeddedness is goes throughout the channel. I mean, not just from the community level, it goes also to the market level. And in between the data incorporation, the impact on corporation, the local execution, that strongly depends. So the entire thing is basically a dashboarded, or seen it from the eyes of technology, not just only one aspect of it. So not trusted community relationship, as we told earlier, that is something which is not easily the local access on ground processing system, as we have decentralized our model. So that is something which we are totally confident upon, and that is how we are expanding. And then not to, it'll be bad if we don't include the market linkage. It's the way of, how we are confident enough to take it from the up ground level to the market level, and technology is plus plus for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think please don't see this as being scrutinized. I think one of the things to recognize here is what your position, because we asked you to say, because of us, this happens, right? That sentence is great. What you need in your perspective is definitely mention traceability in that sentence. And definitely mention the on-ground value that you already have seeded by embeddedness. So we are an embedded something. Because of us, this happens in a very traceable way. There. Now it's very difficult to find a replaceable version of this.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where we're going with this. Okay. Ananya, could you read out another one of the sentences we had on there?
Is this for the next group or the same?
Yeah, for the next group, but a different startup as well.
Sure. So just to again reiterate the group, that's Mahesh ji from AgroZ, Dr. Sudha from Akashine, and Jayant ji from Nature Connect. I'll maybe read out Hitesh's statement here. So he said, we're transitioning farmers from chemical intensive crops like rice to millets, improving soil health and reducing water usage, and introducing bio input for soil health. So if any of the three in this group would like to come in on this statement.
So here you've got to say, can you tell in one sentence, who is better off because of this startup existing?
Yeah, Dr. Sudha. I think you're on mute if you're speaking. Yeah.
I know I'm in the same group, but I just have a contradictory statement here. Transitioning farmers from chemical intensive crops like rice to millets. As an organization, we are also giving some crop recommendation. So along with the soil test, we also give them 5 best crops that can be grown for their region. So our by like service and extra service, which is like small service, is becoming a very big part for them. So I'm like, I'll not tell, but like easily replaceable kind thing, because we are doing it as a service, like with the data.
Yeah, but now I want value clarity, right? So now I want us all to think who is better off because of Hitesh's work. Who gains the maximum?
Farmers gains the maximum because the yield is directly implicating. Yield is directly increasing.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yes.
So my it's a first question, and then because the adoption, see, we are in India, I do not know people who say, no, I'll give up on eating rice. Because millets will get me money. Eventually, I buy rice by selling millet. We have to really see how we are making that transition happen without creating an imbalance in food supply. Because you cannot grow millets and obviously we are going to reduce emissions because rice emits methane while millets will not. But the point is that how the farmer is going to look at it and where is that balance? That how we say that 30% of this particular agriculture fields will be millets and maybe others we are leaving it for farmer's choice. That is one question I have when we said that directly that we are replacing rice with millets. That is unlikely to happen in India because people invariably eat rice on daily basis.
Yeah, and Hitesh, would you like to respond to that? But Jayantji, was your thing that the farmer still benefits because of better price of the produce?
Uh, I I mean, it is if it is already part of the buyback agreement that Hitesh signs with the farmers, then definitely yes. Otherwise, what has happened is generally when you say that okay, 1,000 farmers are farming going to plant ragi, then the supply will obviously decide the price, and which might not be attractive all the time, because everyone probably you must have also done this. I have visited a lot of small help groups who are making ragi, these the sweet balls that we call ladus, and we do not know who is going to eat that
Yeah.
because the quality is it. Then when you go to retail market, it is all about branding. So we really need to understand that how do we maintain that particular price point, which will make it a very attractive proposition for the farmer to choose between the rice and millet, and he will choose the millet.
Yeah, absolutely agreed that there are many complications here. But once, could we get Ananya to read out Hitesh's statement? Once again, I see your hand up, Mahesh. We'll come to you. Ananya, could we just read out Hitesh's
Sorry,
sentence?
I was on mute. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. Transitioning farmers from chemical intensive crops like rice to millets, improving soil health and reducing water usage and introducing bio inputs for soil health. So there
Okay,
are various points.
Maheshji, I think I had seen his hand up. We can
Yeah.
speak to him. And Hitesh, please jump in here to respond to some
Yeah,
of this
sure,
if you'd
sure.
like.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
just want to
Okay.
respond to,
And
yeah, Mehez bhai, you can go ahead, then I'll respond.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Hitesh, you can go. Then after that, I will go.
Okay.
No, no.
Okay. So yeah, I completely agree with the Jayan ji, like where we cannot push farmers to completely shift, and whenever we are approaching to the farmers, our approach would be like, okay, you have 5 acres of land, you just
Yeah.
try half acres or 1 acre of land. We should not like ask
Complete
you to
switch.
कि
Yeah.
complete switch की अच्छा आप 5 एकड़ पे इसका फार्मिंग करिए, वो कभी प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल होना भी नहीं है, लाइक फार्मर्स करेगा भी नहीं, बिकॉज वी नीड टू सी देयर फाइनेंशियल like
Yeah.
how much money they are making out of it, so that transition will happen slowly, like step by step.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great. I'm going to try and move us fairly quickly. So the next couple of hands up, if you're in the group to watch for value clarity, just tell me which stakeholder was better off. We'll keep some, we are going to run out of time for discussions, and I'm really glad there was a lot more interaction today. But I do want to keep us to the slides that we have going. So the next few hands up, if you're in that group, please just tell me who you think it is.
I think Maheshi had raised his hand earlier and then he put it down. Maheshi, do you want to come in?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. In I also work in the millet sector, but it's very difficult to shift from rice to the millets. But I will go with the rice because it will take time to shift from the rice to millets because the right now demand and supply, it also depends on the community. Now the demands of the millets is not higher as because rice is a staple food, and to shift from the chemical to the natural farming, it's not uh, practically possible because of the yield and the farmer income is important. But for the nutritional security, millets are the good for that one. So I think this is a contradictory statement for me. Yeah, because we are closely working with the both the farmers, rice and millets, and for the us to shift from the rice to the millets, it's very difficult for us to
I would
because
like,
there is the
yeah, I would
yeah.
like to pause here for just 1 second and say, are you all working in the same geography or different geographies?
No, no, no. We are working in the different geography because Hitesh is
Yeah,
working in the Madhya Pradesh, and
yeah,
that geography is very favorable for the millets cropping pattern.
right.
That climate
And
is
and
also
there's also
suitable
a
for that.
cultural memory, right? So I know where I
Yes,
work around Kanha, Kodo and Kutki, everyone grows a little bit on the sloping land.
yes,
But tomorrow, if
yes,
I come and say grow, I don't know, Kangni also they might grow. But if I come with a new millet, many places there don't grow ragi. But if I come and say start growing ragi, that farmer adoption will be very difficult. So I hear your
yes,
case, but I think there are multiple places here within central India where the patchiness dictates what's plausible. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, great. Did anyone else have their hand up?
Yeah, we do have a hand up from Nagasai. He's in group 3, but
Okay.
since no one else is there, he can come.
Okay, so
Yeah.
wait. So group 3, then Nagasai, I want you to just say off the open field and of Manisha's and Hitesh's statements. Where did you catch restoration alignment for both of them and what that was?
I think with respect to restoration, at least there is a mention of in Manisha's at least there is ecosystem, not exactly on land. Maybe there is income increase from 2 to 5x. But how, I think maybe I don't know, it's possible to put it in one statement. But in Hitesh, I think is less, there's no quantifiable thing to tell ki, okay, this much of thing or clear mechanism exists. But okay, I think there is more like, okay, it is comparatively less
I
chemicals or
actually,
maybe.
I actually think I would flip that. In my head, it was the other way around. So it was with Manisha's, there was a case for sustainable use of forests because these are forest products. But how sustainable will it be commercially was not clear in the statement. And does it have restoration impact was not so clear to me. But in Hitesh's, I actually thought the low water use, the removal of chemicals headed its way into direct restoration impact a lot better. But this is again positioning statements, right? So
Yeah.
what I would like to do now, and we only have a few minutes left, is there a Nagasai, what did you actually want to say? Let's do that and then we'll go to the next one.
Yeah. I think in terms of value clarity, it need not always be community, right? I think
Yeah.
in Hitesh thing, because I was thinking on maybe the better way could be as in the offering to customers by the end customers, right? I think maybe that could be because I could not see that coming from anyone elsewhere. When I mean, it was more like we provide clean
Or
food or whatever they do.
yeah,
That side of
yeah,
stakeholder
absolutely. It
is
could be nutritional gains on the consumer
yeah,
side as well.
because
But
that is more compelling. As in when we speak millet versus rice, there is always farmer adoption. All of that is a bigger this one, right? But when we
sure.
in terms of positioning, maybe
But
going
in
to consumer, they evaluate it a lot, right?
But in just the sentence, we do this, that allows for this. I think it was very clear in Hitesh's statement that the stakeholder that was better off in this decision was the farmer, would have a crop that may have a better, outcome for him economically and might have knock-on impacts for climate change because no methane, right? So I think there are ways to clarify this. We are not going to solve this for every single one of us today, but I want you to spend time on the section 3 and section 6 of your worksheets because what it'll bring us to, and I'm going to move us along now. What it'll bring us to is this. This is called a positioning statement. Did anyone else have their hands up, Ananya, or anything in the chat we need to address?
Nothing addition in the chat. There's just a few points for the cohort that Payal and Aprajita have put. So just a few notes there that would be helpful for you all to read, but nothing in terms of the exercise.
Great. So here I have a couple of examples, and this honestly, just like last time, I'm going to let you sit with it. So we're going to end the session fairly quickly now. We're going to end the session in a couple of minutes. But what you should come out with at the end of this worksheet is this positioning statement. We are a dash creating value for whom by doing what while contributing to what restoration goals, right? So there are a few examples here, but I want you to sit and try and work this out. You have the entire worksheet ahead to sit and figure out what this positioning statement will look like. And this statement is essentially your pitch. This is why you're important. This is why you should be funded. This is why you should scale. All of these things will sit within this positioning statement. We're not going to spend time here, but take one of the things that we want you to think about is what is the one thing you will test, change, or investigate in your positioning within the next 2 weeks before you go and pitch. So last time we were talking about your position within the system. Now we've done the strengthening of that position to come to a positioning statement. That's the output from these 2 sessions. And in closing, I just wanted to quickly say a few things. That your strong positioning is going to be very relevant to where you sit in the larger restoration system. If you have an extremely strong positioning, you can talk to NGOs, you can talk to government, you can talk to investors, you can talk to farmers, you can talk to buyers. All of this gets solved to a very large degree. Not all enterprises need to become restoration organizations. We've been doing this from the beginning. Everyone here does not need to become a direct restoration actor. You can be an enabler, you can be an adjacent support system that allows for any of this restoration to happen. But you must understand your role clearly. That's the entire point of these exercises. And so your one commitment as we close today is to find out and identify. On your worksheets, there's a little final summary. The one thing you will test or change or investigate within your positioning within the 2 weeks. Now, I know that we had a lot more interaction today, and so some of those conversations remain incomplete. If any of you would like to continue to have those conversations, please do so in your group as well. But if you need my inputs, I will be available should someone want to email. That's totally fine. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. I hope this was useful. I was really happy for everyone's interactions and thoughts and tips and tricks as we went along. But that's it from me. Thank you. Thanks, Ananya. Okay, I can jump off if that's what we're doing because you did want to stay with the cohort for a bit.
I wanted to add one thing, like if no one has any questions, so I would request you all to please turn on your camera so we can take a screenshot.
Yeah, and I did run over a little bit today. So if there are questions, I mean, what I would really like is if they can be compiled in a Google Doc and I can respond to them. And even over the course of the rest of this, if there's a small thing that you do need to reach out on email for, please do reach out to the organizing team and they'll get in touch with me.
I'll just quickly come in here. Sorry, just I won't take too much time, but thank you so much, Dr. Amrita. I think these two sessions were very wonderful. It's a great sort of way for us to get a clarity around thinking. I think there are a lot of avenues that we do not think of when we go about the usual business, and I think it's also sort of given us the opportunity as the program team to also think more deeply about how we work with startups and what their business models are, what their positioning is, and when we have further sort of rounds of pitching and reaching out to investors and other exercises, a lot of this thinking will be very, very helpful. So
Thanks.
that's
I'm glad.
wonderful. And yeah, just one more comment here is that I mean, there was a time when we used to work with positioning statements, which, once you have a good positioning, it used to remain that for years and years to come. I mean, I remember about 1.5 decades ago when I started working and, we used to think I was in marketing and we had these positioning statements. We were very happy. We figured it all out and, it's going to stay with us for a lifetime. I think things are very different now, right? I mean, and that's also sort of falling from a comment I dropped in the chat today that things are changing around us so quickly that this is something that we need to stay on top of this. So it's possible that what you have today, by the end of the program, when you actually pitch on the demo days to investors, your thinking might look very different. So please don't stop thinking. Please keep asking questions and doing this iteratively, right? And we are also here to sort of support you through that process, right? But it's very, very important. Political economy, technology, consumer interests, markets, everything around us changing very, very rapidly. And it's important to stay on top and really look for what your advantages are, what your positioning is, where the stickiness sort of comes from. It's very hard to find, but it also pushes us to think harder. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. And those are some thoughts I wanted to share. Thank you.
Absolutely. Agree with all of those, Divya. So maybe it's something for you to think of to visit some exercise like this for yourself every once in a while so that your dynamic changes are captured. But thank you so much. All right, let me know when I can jump off or if you need me to stick around for a bit for questions or anything.
Payal, do we have the photo? Sorry, I just
Yeah.
wanted
I have taken the screenshot. Yes.
Okay. All right then. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
I'm sharing the feedback